Hello and welcome to the Coastal Noise Podcast, episode 50. 50 episodes. I'm here with Will Lammons. We just wrapped up on what we just did. We did a pretty awesome set. If you want to hear more episodes, go to coastalnoise.com, go to the podcast page, and you can hear everything we got there. You can download it to your phone, go to YouTube, stream it straight off of the website there, whatever your pleasure is. The last podcast we did was with the Tall Boys, and I recorded a series of live recordings. They were all just one takes, and they just did a bunch of songs, and they played a couple that are in the show. There's like two in the beginning, one in the middle, one in the end. Or you can go on YouTube to the Coastal Noise page and just watch all that they did there. These guys are phenomenal. They're actually playing tomorrow at Long Beach, 2 p.m. I don't know the place, but go find them on Facebook or wherever else.
It's a beer, coffee, and cigar festival.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome.
And it's on Jeff Davis Avenue, the kind of main drag through little downtown Long Beach. It's I can't remember the name of the coffee place.
It probably doesn't even matter because this isn't going to be uploaded by the time they.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, all right.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I didn't either. All right.
But hey, the Tall Boys. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, Tall Boys kick ass.
Yeah. And you should go see them any chance you get. So, and this, of course, whatever festival we're promoting here, that sounds really cool. So for next year or whatever have you, definitely go check that out. So from there, everything else we got, if you want to follow Coastal Noise or me, you can go to Twitter, Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, Stefan J. Lawson. But Coastal Noise is just the Facebook and the Twitter thing. So however you want to get it, that's where I put up all the good stuff.
And I'm on the Twitter sphere as well. You can follow me at Will Lammons. That's Lammons.
Yep. Follow him as he leaves the state to go on to bigger, better things. So keep your social media alive, man. Jealous of that. But so we just wrapped up the podcast here, and we'll let you roll. We talked about all kinds of crazy stuff from nature to Walt Disney to sex education in the Netherlands.
Bath salts.
No, we did not talk about
bath salts came up.
You mentioned it.
I mentioned it. We talked about it.
You just want us to talk about bath salts.
I didn't want us to talk about it.
And now people are like, what are we listening to?
Bath salts!
No, don't ignore that, people. This show has nothing to do with bath salts. It's all about way smarter stuff that we talked about. The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield, and things going on in politics. And all that good stuff. But why listen to us now when you can hear what we said in the show? So enjoy Coastal Noise Podcast, episode 50, on to 100. Thank you.
We're talking about real animals that they turned into characters. So this is like the first Disney nature film where it's not like Mickey Mouse, where Mickey Mouse is a mouse. That's also a character. This is like, real animals. And from there, they do the kind of big one after that was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where they, it's Captain Nemo, but it's like Captain Nemo in the context of the nuclear world. Mm-hmm. So the submarine is this escape, and they have all the cinematography is really cool because it's all underwater, and one of the big themes in the film is all about how the sea is this bountiful thing, and it's that can provide all these different resources. Like on the boat, on the submarine, they eat all these crazy things, and then he tells them, oh well, this is octopus milk, and this is rendered from seaweed and all this different shit. But then they make the kind of climax about nuclear power and how man's not ready for nuclear power. But the point is, in that, it's like there's a huge focus on the actual living underwater element. And so once they do Disney parks, you have this arrival of these embodied places that are kind of taken from nature. Like, they have a lot of that kind of stuff at Epcot, but they also do Frontierland and stuff like this. Like Frontierland is a place to escape to. And especially in the early princess films, the princesses are always running away to the woods and all that. So you remember the classic scene from Snow White when she runs out into the woods and all the trees are monsters, and it kind of everything becomes unstuck, and then she arrives at this cabin and there's all these little dwarfs, and she kind of finds this escape and security and safety in nature. Mm-hmm. So it goes all the way up, and you have like the Davy Crockett stuff and in the 50s. Yeah. So I mean, we talked about Disney nature a lot.
Where did you get into all this common
I took a class.
association with-
I took a class on Disney.
Really?
Took an anthropology class on Disney at Millsaps.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's like, looking through. Are we live yet?
Yeah, it's rolling.
Okay, cool. So we at Millsaps we do a Disney class run by Dr. Bay, and it's anthropology. So it's examining, analyzing American culture through the lens of Disney. So looking at culture and the shaping and creation of contemporary American culture in the context with Disney as a lens, not even in the kind of in the context of Disney, but also using Disney to talk about like Henry David Thoreau and all these these things that you and I have been talking about before we started. But
which was we got
right,
started on
it's
this
transcendentalism.
so people know.
So one theme that came up a lot in our discussions was and to boil it down to like one specific phrase is in Disney's media, nature is an escape. Nature is an escape for human beings to go and find themselves, to go and realize who they are. Almost like, for kind of prophet figures where they go up on the mountain
mountains for 40 days into the desert.
Right.
Isolation.
So, exactly. So like when, John has his revelation on the top of the mountain, and when Muhammad does the same thing, and when Jesus goes out into the desert for 40 days.
Buddha under the tree.
Exactly.
Et cetera, et
so
cetera.
it's the same, motif, boom, 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 boom. And Disney does this also with nature across the board. So you have like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty is also a good one. She's walking through the woods and singing, and then all of a sudden there's the Prince. What's another really good one? Oh damn it!
Is there a reference to like the mermaid one?
Yeah, but the mermaid is different because in that
she's under the sea.
So with Thoreau and with Disney, it's this idea that nature is kind of liminal space. Mm-hmm. So nature is a place to go and escape to, where things become unstuck and fluid, and you can achieve different kind of things. And that goes back to Shakespeare. That goes back to Shakespeare and before. That's Purcell and all kinds of. That in some ways that can be really medieval, but you find that in Mesoamerican cultures too. This idea of
and just like we said, the spiritual aspect about it, of how far it goes back with just different religions of the world, and
right. Damn it, I was really looking for those really good Disney examples, but so Disney has this really kind of like heraldic, thought towards nature. They have the animal kingdom, to where the whole thing is based around animals. It's based, and they're divided up into Asia and Africa, and they even have a ride where it's called Expedition Everest, and you go through this huge thing and the line is all themed and designed to be a ride in itself, to where you're preparing to go on an expedition up Mount Everest, and then the roller coaster is Mount Everest. But it's this repetition of this idea that nature is the escape. WALL-E's a really cool example because, have you seen WALL-E?
yes.
Right. So then So in WALL-E, humanity is totally removed from nature, mm-hmm. and we're floating through space in like giant lazy boys with iPads in front of our faces, mm-hmm. and we're totally immobile, and
disconnected.
Right. But the idea is that humanity is waiting for nature to replenish so that we can go back to it, mm-hmm. and then when there's finally like a grain of hope that we can, the entire race goes back, for one little green leaf. Because that is what really what kind of disconnects, but also it's the escape, but it also this is Thoreau. So it's the escape that reconnects you to yourself. So that's the idea.
Did WALL-E find, was there like they brought something out? It's been a long time since I've seen the movie. Did they get something and then they were like, oh, there's something on Earth now because they found this thing?
So they had
it's very like the Ark kind of thing of
it's actually, that's a really good, it's perfect for what it is. They had WALL-E was a garbage robot, and they have the Eve robots that go back and look around for evidence of life, of new growing plants and things like that. And one of these Eve robots finds one. And she goes back to the spaceship.
That's right. I remember now. Yeah.
She goes back to the spaceship to say, oh, we can go back home. And then the captain of the ship basically gets on a 24-hour Wikipedia binge and goes, oh my God, we have to go back home and find humanity again, but through nature. It's not like, oh man, we have to go and trek through the Amazon jungle and go, dig all these plants and animals. Like, oh no, we have to go home and find who we are as a people because this nature is now capable.
Mm.
So it's like it's a part of us, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So it's like a 3-step kind of liminal sequence. It's like we're going to escape from this thing that is society that is in some ways bad, to go out to nature, to disconnect from that, but then recapture ourselves, refine what is better, kind of like purify ourselves. And it's you could probably hear the same types of arguments from people that are really enthusiastic about camping and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, get away from it all, things like that. And that's that in my understanding and in my studies, that's how I've come across it. And I got so used to talking about it in the context of Disney. An English major in another one of my classes actually goes, actually, no, that's Henry David Thoreau. So check your shit, Lammons. Yeah. And you kind of say, it got to the point where like I was looking for that stencil on top of everything. It's like, oh, nature is an escape. Nature is an escape. Nature is an escape. And you say, well, what the hell? Like, okay, well, everything's like this. Like, well, no, it's not. If you're an ancient Egyptian or a 16th century Spaniard, it's all about control of nature and mastery of nature. So the early Egyptian kingship iconography is all about like controlling the Nile. Mm-hmm. And you see, you know, the Narmer palette, the first thing, it's like, you know, this big great king with these two things, and the two things represent the Nile. And in Spain today, you'll see these really bizarre shrubs that are cut into, you know, not hexagons, but gigantic rectangles. And they don't let them grow up tall and things like that. You know, so they talk about a Spanish garden or a French garden and an English garden. So an English garden is like a big forest, you know, like woods. Like if you go to Munich, you go to the English garden and you're like, damn it, like we're in the woods. And it's just acres and acres of woods almost in the middle of the city of Munich. But a Spanish garden is really a really prissy like plaza with a few wacky shrubberies. And they'll be like, you know, 10 feet tall, but cones. So, but it's all about this mastery of nature. So we can shape it into any way you want. So you get some really great like Edward Scissorhands kind of topiaries. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the difference. But you can find those all over, you know, Latin America. I mean, I can really speak to seeing them in Yucatan and in Mexico, saying like, Spanish colonialism, because it's like we have conquered nature and we are now shaping it to our will. It's like, I mean, what's more, you know, what's more empowering than turning the side of a mountain face into a few presidents that are really awesome? You know, it's a similar idea, but we fancy more of the transcendental kind of escapism. That's why we have, you know, big, fantastic national parks. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why so many people enjoy travel to South America as a geological kind of thing?
For that idea of liminality? For that idea
for the idea that South Americans have a lot of history of doing incredible things with their environments, and it's still preserved really well in a lot of senses. And
I don't think it has to do with their preservation. I think we're way better at preserving it.
Sure. But for their time, I would say, like, with what they had, you know.
What are you talking about? What can you be more specific?
Not really.
In terms of what do you mean? Like how there's still Andean civilizations there's still Andean leftovers of like Machu Picchu and things like that are left.
Yeah, Machu Picchu.
Yeah, I mean, I think people go to Latin America and to South America for other reasons, because there's not a lot of, so to do these kinds of really awesome travel trips, you really kind of have to have infrastructure to do it. So you have to have the support, you know, these are registered and monitored parks that we have in the U.S. and they don't really have those in Latin America. I mean, they've done a really good job of it, or a pretty decent job of it in Brazil, and they have people that go to these big national parks. But that's not something that they really have in a lot of places. They have, you know, big tracts of land and stuff like that, but they don't have a whole lot of like registered, monitored, regulated national parks. I think people go to Latin America and to South America for the same reasons that I do, because it's exotic. You know, all the for me it definitely gets a little cheesy. It's like it's exotic and it's different, but there's something very I mean, you said spiritual, but there's something very mystical about these places. So,
right, yeah. So
I'm not very well versed in Latin American literature, but for me, a lot of what I've read in 20th century Latin American literature, I had already found in the people and in the culture there. So the kind of most fun thing to take away is like, oh, the people are really warm and friendly. once there are definitely some things that can be, scare quotes, scary about these places, or unnerving at the least. And I mean, there's real problems going on. I mean, look at Venezuela. Look at, not everything you see on the news in Mexico means, not everything you see on the news that is about Mexico means that you have to be terrified to go to Cancun for a weekend or something like that. Mexico is not that I mean, definitely you have to be careful as you would anywhere. But I lived in Granada, Spain, and I watched my back probably 10 times more in Granada than I did when I lived in Yucatan. And I mean, Yucatan is the safest state in the entire republic, and I would love to go to the border states. I mean, who wouldn't, it would just be, but it's dangerous. I mean, up there it is dangerous. And I'm kind of tangenting right now, but I travel for the same reasons that Thoreau went to the woods. Mm-hmm. It's an escape for me. And for me, I mean, I'll speak to me personally because I haven't traveled a whole lot in Latin America. I've been to places and I've met people. A lot of people that I met were drunk Australians.
Really?
Yeah.
I see those guys a lot too in travels.
Yeah, you travel around the world and you see churches and Australians and other things, but those are kind of like, you can kind of go a lot of places, and a lot of what you will bump into are Australians and churches. It's just, I don't know, that's how it works.
That's how.
There was another one I used to say. I said, you go around the world. Well, it was with a buddy and who had been to Munich with me the summer before, and then we were in Mexico together. And we're, looking at a church in a little colonial town. I said, you travel around the world, what do you see? And he goes, well, I don't know, Lammons. Churches. But I mean, you could say, and I said that to somebody one time, and they said, oh, well. I'm like, I'm sorry, I haven't been to Asia. Would love to go to Asia now. I mean, anyways.
This is particularly funny because I think I know who you're talking about too, so. You can tell me later.
I don't think you know this guy.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm
going to take my glasses off. Headphones. These are fantastic headphones, but they're getting to me.
You should you could switch. These are fantastic.
These
are
good?
My favorite.
Here, yeah. I don't want to take yours.
Huh? No, these are the same kind as mine. You can just switch the jacks or no, you can just put them on.
These are probably live. Oh, ATs, these are good.
Yeah. I'm gonna get my tea real quick.
Yeah, go get your tea. Oh wow, these are dynamite. They even sound better. Could you give me a glass of ice, please?
Where do we go from there, Will Lammons?
So, well, Stefan, you just told me that it's your 50th Coastal Noise podcast.
It is.
So, how about I ask you a couple of questions?
Oh, dude. Shoot.
So, how long have you been doing this for now?
Actually, this month is 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's also the 2-year anniversary.
It is. Yeah.
I feel so honored. Thank you,
dude. Yeah. And we've kicked it off.
Yeah.
Exactly as it's supposed to be kicked off.
Right on. Just organic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Pick something and go with it. Mm-hmm. So and you're still going. So what are your favorite things? I won't ask you what were your favorite moments? What are your favorite things to do on the podcast? What are your favorite things to talk about?
Topic wise?
Yeah, sure.
Definitely philosophy, psychology. What you talk about anthropology wise fascinates me to no end. Anything that's related to science, English, as we've talked about, literature. I mean, anything, man. Everything, fascinates me. But I'd say particularly natures of philosophical, psychological, and then so much, man.
Word. So next level.
Which is why it's so fun to continue to do, because you can continue to talk to all different kinds of people who know those fields and bring you new. I mean, it's a learning experience. It's the education factor of it, which, is huge to me. I remember years ago always thinking I want to be in something that's like a fraternity, but I don't want to join a fraternity. And I even kicked it around for a while just to see, and I just never committed to it fully. But what I really wanted is a place where people could come together and just be themselves and talk uninterrupted for the most part, right? Unless we need whiskey drinks or what have you. So
whiskey drinks or whatever.
But you just go with it, To me, that was as important as what you would get out of joining a large group of some sort, or even the education system itself, because the education system, not knocking it, but it goes a certain way, whereas this is kind of, like you said, an organic just fusion of conversation that spawns idea, and it's a constant feedback. You're really, whereas like a teacher might be constantly kind of putting it to you, you're all working, we're all in this together trying to figure this thing out.
Oh, this is more like a seminar.
Yes.
Seminar.
So, and everybody gets that, everybody gets to do this seminar thing,
right.
Step to the podium, the mic, and, work together on it,
Right. So I feel like I embody more of the academic kind of, side of that. There's in terms of the topics that we've talked about in the past, things like bath salts and things like that.
Yeah. The weird stuff.
Bath salts always seem to come up in our podcast. What about with guys like when you talk to guys from like the guys from Crest Live or Roscoe Bandana, what do y'all with people that, I don't know. I'm a musician. I love playing, but I see those podcasts as being oriented towards something different, and y'all talking about different stuff. I mean, what were things with those separate groups of people that you enjoyed better, or enjoyed different things about that you enjoyed? I mean, did you talk philosophy with the guys from Crest Live or with Roscoe Bandana?
Well, nothing's off limits, and it's kind of where the conversation goes. Definitely in those type of conversations, like the people you mentioned, it's geared toward a certain direction because they specialize in something.
Right.
And I want to know what it is or how it is that they specialize in that thing. And because that provides a learning experience for me and for anybody else who wants to listen to it in that particular field.
Right. Cool.
Once again, kind of going back to an education thing. And then to get to know those people outside of that specialty as well, I think is really a lot of fun. That develops friendships, that develops personal business relationships between people. It's good if you go into it with good intention and you're all, everybody's going to have their own agenda or what they want out of something, but it's really the people that you share, and you can feel it innately that you have similar intentions with on some levels for some things. You can't have it for all things, but if you can get a lot of things, the majority of things, then you really share something special. And at the end of the day, hopefully you've caught lightning in the bottle.
Right on, dude. Dig it. So next level. So a big thing, with me studying anthro, it was, you learn a lot about what has happened, and you learn to look for patterns, or one learns, blah, blah. And I arrived at this point in my studies, which just kind of pushed me where I'm going in the future. So you have this knowledge, you have this theory, you have these ideas about education and all this. What should and you've kind of talked about this already, but I want you to push a little more.
Okay.
So where is this going? What's, I know it's about education, but like, what is the role of the podcast?
Well, like your first question, like before you asked the role of it, where's this going? Yeah. Who knows? Who knows where it's going?
Right.
And who knows I believe I'm a firm believer in evolution of nature, evolution of people, evolution of all things in time across space. And I think that to say there's a set role or there's a set destination is to be ignorant to evolution and to the unknown of the universe. No matter how much I want to learn or how much I want humanity to learn and evolve, there's still those unknowns. Science, it's great. I love science, and it keeps going, and it finds new things, and it's always pushing. But for what is its role? What is its destination? You know what I mean? It's like we don't know exactly. Science could just keep diving and diving and diving and finding that all little things are a version of big things, as a big things are a smaller.
Right, but I think a lot of
beloved and beloved.
I don't want to cut you off, but I think a lot of times it's really important to say. So I was doing research, and I was doing research on graffiti, and my advisor at one point said, "Okay, this is great, and you have all these great pictures, and you're kind of getting a taxonomy together, but you need to make sure that you're not just categorizing things. Mm-hmm. that there's something to this, because he's an archaeologist, so he goes, a lot of people in my field, they just kind of look up after 5 years or something, and they've just organized a few thousand potsherds or bones or what have you. Mm-hmm. And I think you're there, but I just in the future, I think how about this? What I think this is for, I think especially if you're talking to guys like Chris Live and to guys like Roscoe Bandana and to guys like me and Eddie Dixon and Diggy Diggs and
Johnny Cole.
Yeah, and Johnny Cole and Ben from Irish Ghost Plug.
And the people that are related to cannabis medicines and all that kind of stuff.
I think that what you're doing is you're constructing a community of shared thought for the Gulf Coast, which is so great and so necessary.
And it's not even limited to that too. It's like it's the internet, so thank God, and it's connected. But that starts off small and grows.
So what would be really cool, I think, and I'll challenge you to do this, if you did a live podcast.
I would be totally down
if
for
you
it.
did. I'm sorry, not a live one, but let's say you recorded one. So they do this with what's it called? I feel so stupid right now.
Is it a podcast? Is
no,
it a TV
it's
show?
It's the radio show they do on
Radio
NPR
show.
that's recorded in Oxford every Thursday night at Square Books.
I know what you're talking about.
Thacker Mountain Radio. I knew it was a mountain. There it goes. I had to bring it up. It's the evil E. Yeah. But yeah, so they play it live on Thursday nights, but they record it and air it Saturday night. So you could do this in a coffee shop or something on a Thursday night, or like at the Roasters in Long Beach or something, and do a partnership and get a crowd there, and you could have a PA system playing, and y'all could talk it out, and then Diggs could do a set, or somebody could come and play music,
absolutely,
and then you could do.
It's like what I did with the Tall Boys. I would love to have that live,
and do that live. That would be really cool, and I will challenge you to do that in the future.
Yeah,
because you've done 50 of these. You've been doing it for 2 years, and you've had some pretty incredible people, including myself.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you, Will.
Be a good guess, man. I can't. Yeah. No, but no, I think that'd be cool. So I challenge you to do that in the future.
So the thing to that is there's a lot of factors that go into that. Some people automatically assume that live is the ultimate go-to and all what have you. And I agree with it. In fact, the way that I prefer to do the shows is a very live feel to it. I don't like a lot of chopped and edits and all this and uncensored and unscripted and what have you. So there's resources that of course go into that. Doing that is taking that extra step means extra resources. It also helps to have more people because like I pretty much run and manage and produce and release and all of it. Yeah, so that gets tough, to have a team would be hugely helpful. Yeah. Hugely. And that's something that, I've been considering for a while. Yeah. Especially like social media relations and things like that. But that would be really cool. Another reason besides the resources that I'm glad that I've done it this way is that it creates less of an intimidation factor to just get people to come and join me. Yeah. Whether they're regular people or they're a senator or an activist or anything like that, to know that I'm as a, someone who's doing this as a professional thing, I'm going to do everything to make it sound the way you would want it to sound. You know what I mean? Like if you make a mistake, it's all right. We're not live. I can take that out. I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate you being here, and I want to meet you halfway so that, because a lot of people have anxiety about doing things like this.
Yeah, especially if you're talking to politicians and stuff about like that, like Prop 8.
Sure. Especially with this uncensored, unscripted format, whereas, like you said, in politics, the example of politics, that's a very methodical, I am this presentation kind of thing, which is one thing that was so cool about Harkins, Senator Harkins. Like he was very, as a big name person, one of the bigger people, to like actually sit down and like be a real true person. That is huge to me as a kid who kind of grew up not really sure about authority figure, not really sure about government, diving into different conspiracy theories, not necessarily believing them, but opening my mind to the possibilities of how far the rabbit hole can go when you have power and money and a control of a nation and what have you. Or in the world, in the U.S.'s example, for a long period of time. It's debatable whether that's still going. But where was I going with that? What was I talking about?
Organicness, it happens.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of politics, has a lot of, underlying, it's this, it's that. And so for me, that was huge, as I was saying. That was huge to actually see somebody who was in politics and who could sit down and like be themselves and talk, straight from the hip, that was really cool for me, because then I was like, hey, there are people like that are out there like this, like, and this one's in my state particular. Like, that was really cool. That was huge. It's this reinforcing that all people aren't the same, all stereotypes don't fit. You know, you can't just be like, oh, the government is screwed and like they all money. It's, you know, there's a period where it fluctuates in terms of whose intentions are what and for what reasons. But I think it comes around and it does go up and down. And I think we're all in a lot better of a place now than we were in the past, largely because of the internet, because everything's so open and out there. Social media, like I was talking about earlier, that's another huge thing where transparency, you know, if someone were to listen to all 50 of these, they would know who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I have to do that every time.
Yeah.
You know, so transparency for me is huge. And that, let me tell you, man, what that has done for social relations for me to people face to face is like huge. That is one of the biggest things I've noticed in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Just, and what do you mean by that?
So many different things by that.
Okay.
Just the communication back and forth of what it goes, the way I speak, the way I interpret them, the way I work around everything that makes them who they are as a person.
Just with anybody, or with anybody in any situation?
It can be anybody. It can be totally anybody.
Can you give me an example?
Just let's say you have a new work acquaintance, or you're chatting it up with a cashier person at the grocery store. It can literally be anybody. And it's just that given amount of time where, because a lot of episodes, right, I've had people that I know come on and chop it up or whatever like that. And that's been a lot of proof of concept thing to show people the product and get other people on and what have you. But a lot of people I didn't really know. Maybe you just called them up on the phone and I asked them and we talked for a while and we got the agreement and then I met them then, you know, things like that. So anybody for me out in the world outside of this, to just like the cashier or the new worker or whatever, to just quickly come together with somebody that I know nothing about and step away from my bias and my perspectives and my stereotypes that might jump out initially, pull those back, and then using what I know from psychology, from what I've studied from psychology, from doing this, which is hugely communicational. It's all communicational. And feeling those vibes and being tuned into that, characteristics of what makes them up as a moral person, as an ethical person, as a person who has their own perceptions about race and people and happiness and history and religion, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, so there you go. So this goes back to my earlier question of what's the role of this? So now you've revealed that it's actually a kind of consciousness practice for you, a consciousness method practice to where it helps you expand yourself, but also in daily practice. So in the context of the podcast, but also in the context of going to Winn-Dixie, to where it helps you communicate with the world around you and experience. So for you on a personal level, it's a very social and communication-based practice.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
I guess it would help to kind of like analyze why I got into it in the first place, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. Go ahead and since I'll take credit for leading you there, but go ahead and answer.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah.
You've done so much for us here. Best episode ever.
That's the evil A. Yeah.
Why did I get started in this? Well, it seemed like it would be a lot of fun. And it seemed like something that was in line with the entertainment industry, which is like what I went to school for initially. And like you have been tied into like music and film and photography and all different areas as I've grown up through life, you know, feeling out certain areas and then coming back later on a couple years down the road, like photography, getting into more of that and stuff like that. Like, I'm really excited that you're doing things like you're doing with film. I think it's huge. Cause that's one thing I used to love as a kid is film, but, that's a digression. But so I figured entertainment industry wise, like this was a huge tie-in. Plus it was sound, you know, it's very close to music, which I thought would give me a springboard kind of as like, here's the music and here's me. And like, here's what I'm about. And the way you're going to find out what I'm about is by listening to these people that I bring to the table.
Yes, it's really cool.
So, and then I get to have a shit ton of fun. Like, this is hugely fun, like all the damn time. And the fact that I get to preserve that fun and that feeling, that vibe, and go back and learn again. And then I have people like Ryan Van Skyver, one of the funnest persons to hang around, like just because of the things he says, like his humor, you know. And he moved to Colorado. And
what did he move to?
He's in Denver, like South Denver area. So
cool.
And he's doing more stand up now.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Yeah. So which is, awesome. I'm so jealous of Colorado, man. But that's another digression. Digression the size of a mountain. But like, okay, so for example, like he did a couple podcasts with me and then up and decided he was going to move. This was right around the time that me and Daniel Mark and Ryan started to kick up the comic scene in Ocean Springs and
Right.
the open mics and all that. So, and he up and decides that he's going to move to Denver. So like on the times that I'm like, man, I miss laughing with Ryan. Like I can throw on those episodes because they're long and I forget a lot about what we talk about and the punchlines and just all that stuff. And it makes me feel better. It's like I don't miss my friend as much. You know what I mean?
That's cool. That's cool.
So,
yeah, right on, man.
yeah. I was trying to think of it. I think if you added up all the hours of this thing, it's probably like close to 100 hours if they're like 2 hours on average.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I know the ones that I've done are like hour and a half, something like that. I mean, how long was the one with Eddie and Johnny Cole?
That was our longest one, so it was like 2:15, 2:30.
Damn, long.
And then afterwards we went out to eat and talked for like another hour and a half.
I think I went home and went to bed. I was shooting that day. I was shooting for this pass parade thing.
Yeah, that was the day Diggs was there, I think.
No, I didn't. No, Diggs wasn't here. It was just Johnny and Eddie because I didn't know Johnny. And I got here and y'all had been going for a good 45 minutes already. So I was like, man, this guy knows a lot about music.
Mm-hmm.
I just missed the intro. No, Johnny's a really great guy. It's always fun talking to Johnny. It's cool to see somebody. I don't meet a lot of people his age that are so dedicated to going and seeing music, and it's really interesting to me because he doesn't play. He just goes to shows.
He was a writer in his career.
So it's even to me it's even cooler because it's music from a totally different angle. You know, in some ways it's like almost famous.
Yeah.
You know, where he's that,
which I haven't seen, but I want to.
Oh my gosh.
Is that Charlie Kaufman or David Lynch? It's one of the two. Charlie Kaufman.
It's definitely not a David Lynch. I guess it's Charlie Kaufman, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's based after Kaufman. He did have that kind of similar.
Yeah. So it's the kid, and it's a made up band in the film, and they even make up the music called Stillwater. But it's based on the Allman Brothers, is what it is. But so it's a 16-year-old kid that gets picked up by Rolling Stone to write an article on the Allman Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right as the Allman Brothers are kind of almost hitting that apex of fame, kind of almost hitting that stride. And that's like, I hear Johnny talk about going all over the place, seeing music and writing and telling me stories about writing back in the day. And it's still that like 16-year-old kid, just, you know, eyes as big as watermelons.
Yeah, he's like, real into it.
He loves it. And that's
super supportive of the local scene and like everyone around. I think he's in Athens right now or something like that. He's on the road for...
I don't know where he is.
Yeah, you should follow his Southland music thing and like he posts good stuff.
Yeah, he puts a lot of his stuff on Facebook, you know, where he's going and where he's been. It's like, you know, Athens tomorrow, Atlanta the next day, you know, New Orleans a week later. And I mean, it's constant. It's really cool. He's a really interesting guy. Yeah, and I met him through here and bumped into, and I probably never would have really talked to him and never really gotten to know like what he's about and what he does if it weren't for this podcast. I mean, this is cool because, you know, it's an event and it's a Friday night and we're not, you know, out in a downtown somewhere. We're just, you know, chilling, you know, doing this.
Oh, dude, we got a Saturday ahead of us. That ain't nothing.
Oh, dude, I'm working tomorrow.
I feel you.
I've been Lammons is a lot of jobs these days, but it's cool, man. I find time to still do stuff like this. And try to spend time.
But yeah, you meet cool people. Like, I don't know if you ever saw, I put a blog up from the Magnolia Springs Festival in Alabama, like around the Fairhope area. I went with Johnny and his buddy Steve and took pictures.
Oh, Magnolia Springs. Yeah, I know. I know the Springs, dude. Yeah, that's so you went out to a river house once or twice, right?
Yeah.
So we would go swimming in Magnolia Springs.
Yeah. That's how I kind of know the Fairhope area.
Yeah.
From those. Yeah.
From those trips. Yeah. They have a real famous spring at the end. It's kind of the terminus of it. I mean, it's a little river and it goes and it ends in this big, you know, circular thing.
Yeah.
And it's and we called it the ice box, but everybody else kind of calls it the cold hole. But it's a spring. It's like you know, down here, like I just don't, you know, in spite of my, you know, liminal travel experiences, I'm not like super naturey. So when somebody's like, a spring, you know, I don't even know what to think, but that's what it is. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool, like, that whole thing they did. It was like Willie Sugar Caps and the Mulligan Brothers and
yeah, Mulligan Brothers are out of Mobile. They're like a bluegrass four-piece.
folky kind of thing.
Yeah. They're supposed to be really great. They were on the cover of one of the Mobile, kind of whatever like the Gulf Coast living is for Mobile.
Yeah.
They have a couple of those big magazines, but yeah, they've really been kind of hitting over there in Mobile.
Have I told you about St. Paul and the Broken Bones?
No, you didn't tell me about that.
They're from like
They're from that too.
Birmingham, something like that, Alabama. Really, really good. I'd recommend checking out their YouTube cover of Otis Redding's "Loving You Way Too Long."
Okay, right on. Yeah.
They're really talented. I bought their album. They're going to be at Sloss Fest. You should try to make that if you can. Or
When is it?
It's the weekend of July 18th.
Okay.
So
Let me see what country I'm in, and I'll do my best.
you're going to be in this country.
I'm playing around with there's an applied media project going on in Colombia that I really want to go to, but as of today, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to do it.
Bro, go to Sloss Fest. You can expand your mind.
Where is
Way
it?
cheaper. It's in Birmingham, 5 hours away.
Dang, it's in Birmingham.
It's cheap and the lineup is phenomenal. I think
Is it
Primus
like-
is playing, man.
Primus is playing.
Don't quote me on a bit.
I'm not gonna
Hold on.
quote you until
No,
I
let
see
me
it
pull
in
up the
front of me.
list. The Avett Brothers, Sturgill Simpson, St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
None of those are Primus.
Whoa, what happened there, right? Okay, so at this point in the show, we had a bit of a serious power surge that kind of knocked off our recording, threw us off. In fact, if you've been listening to the whole episode, you might have noticed the little 2 or 3 instances where it sounded like all of a sudden we were jumping in our words, like a second or two just got cut out. Those were minor power surges, which eventually led to a full-on power outage that we had later on in the episode. The good news is that I got all of the audio on backup equipment, so but it's a good chunk. It's like 45 minutes from where this cut is to where we come in later. So what I've decided to do, instead of insert this audio, which is of a lesser quality, I'm just going to upload it as a side blog. If you go look for Coastal Noise Podcast 50 extra or bonus, whatever I label it as, that I'll put up in the blog section, and you can listen to this chunk of the conversation that we did. So we're just going to pick up where we noticed we had after the major power outage, and we come in and finish up the show. So thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Check two. Yeah, so we just lost power. It was devastating.
Yep.
But I think we're okay. I think we succeeded. So we're back in it. I guess we're going to wrap up with an article here. This is something that I found, and I just thought it was very interesting, and I wanted to tie it in with kind of what we've been talking about, like the more controversial things that have been going on lately. And I just found this article to be very interesting because it deals with sex education. In the Netherlands, sex education starts in kindergarten. Here's what they tell them and why. And this is just like a little thing I've kind of put together. It's probably about 5 minutes long, but I'll just kind of explain and you can kind of commentate as you will.
Yeah.
So this is a quote from the guy who's kind of doing this study. And he says, people often think that we are starting right away to talk about sexual intercourse with these young kids, and sexuality is so much more than that. It's also about self-image, developing your own identity, gender roles, and it's about learning to express yourself, your wishes, and your boundaries. And this is, and I'm going to say his name wrong, it's Einick van der Volk, an expert on youth sexual development of Rutgers WPF, the Dutch Sexuality Research Institute, and the organization behind the Netherlands sex education curriculum. So did you know that the Netherlands has one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates in the world? Did you know that the majority of teens in the Netherlands say their first sexual experience were wanted and fun? It could be because by law, all primary school students in the Netherlands must receive some form of sexual education. It's not called sex education because the idea is bigger than that, according to Der Volk. The idea here is to have an open and honest conversations about relationships and love. A 2008 United Nations report found that comprehensive sex education allows young people to explore their attitudes and values and to practice the decision-making and other life skills they will need to be able to make informed choices about their sexual lives. According to the report that was done by PBS News, the system, this is in quotes, the system allows for flexibility in how it's taught, but it must address certain core principles, among them sexual diversity and sexual assertiveness. That means encouraging respect for all sexual preferences and helping students develop skills to protect against sexual coercion, intimidation, or abuse. The underlying principle is straightforward. Sexual development is a normal process that all young people experience, and they have the right to frank, trustworthy information on the subject. The results of this type of program seem to speak for themselves. When it comes to teen sexual health, on average, the teenagers in the Netherlands do not have sex at an earlier age compared to other European countries or in the United States. Also, as mentioned earlier, teen sexual encounters in the Netherlands are wanted and fun, whereas in the United States, and I think this is really interesting, 66% of sexually active teens surveyed said they wished that they had waited longer to have sex for the first time. Another study found that when teens in the Netherlands do actually have sex, approximately 90% of them use protection of some form. So 9 out of 10, that's pretty spot on. That's great. You can't do much better than that. So teen pregnancy rates in the Netherlands as a result are some of the lowest in the world, and so are the rates of HIV infection and sexually transmitted diseases, which I think is really interesting, that statistics of 66%, saying they enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Whereas the amount of people in the U.S., 66%, for us to be as sexually active a nation as we are, you would think that more people would speak positive as the people from the Netherlands do, the teens and what have you.
Does it talk about what they do?
Yes, I'm getting to that. It says here, fairly recent study from Georgetown University shows unintended pregnancies, maternal deaths, and STDs are prevented more often when sex education starts in primary school. So this kind of goes on here into some examples of what they were doing. They might show like a picture of like a boy and a girl hugging, and they might ask, why are they hugging? And they might say, because they like each other. And then the teacher will go around and ask who they like in the school. And sometimes it's their mom or their dad or a sister or someone else in the school. So then they might ask you about how does it feel when someone gives you a hug, and they kind of say, oh, it makes me feel good. So it makes me feel like there are butterflies in my stomach or whatever, what have you. So they go on to say lessons like this are designed to get kids thinking and talking about the kind of intimacy that feels good and the kind that doesn't. Other early lessons focus on things like body awareness. By age 7, students are expected to be able to properly name body parts, including the genitals. They also learn about different types of families, what it means to be a good friend, and that a baby grows in a mother's womb. So they go on. The scientist goes on to say that there were societal concerns that sexuality in the media could have been having a negative impact on kids. We wanted to show that sexuality also has to do with respect, intimacy, and safety. In the U.S., adults tend to view young people as these bundles of exploding hormones. In the Netherlands, there's a strong belief that young people can be in love and in healthy relationships.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd like to hear more about what they do. Where did you get this article?
It might have a site somewhere on the front or something like that, but some news somewhere. I should have sites. I do for a lot of the articles I have here, but
I think you did a pretty decent job pronouncing the name.
Yeah, would you say that's pretty close?
The Dutch names are difficult, man.
Yeah,
I don't have much of a base for Dutch names.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it certainly raises what's her name? Rashida Jones. Rashida Jones is she was Anne on Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
She was on a couple of seasons of The Office. She was
the
in
brunette.
Yeah,
girl.
She's she's dark haired. Yeah, she's gorgeous.
Oh, beautiful.
She was in I Love You Man. Sure. She's actually, and it's fun because they talk about her. Leslie Knope is always, your gorgeous ethnic ambiguity. Yeah. Her parents are black and white, and that's what it is. And that's like, I think I think people like Rashida Jones and Alicia Keys and who was the one that everybody was crazy about? That was the like stripper in Sensei. What was her name?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember the actress's name right now, but those girls are just the greatest arguments for interracial marriage ever.
Right. Well, everybody wants you to, tan. We all want to be tan.
We all want to be tan, but like complexion is like my new favorite word, and but the diversity.
We don't want to be white. We don't want to be black. We want to be somewhere in the middle. We want to be Mexican.
Right, but some Mexicans.
So the joke goes.
Some Mexicans are very
just
dark,
a joke.
and but Mexican ethnic identity is a really fun example because, like in Mexico, it's very typical for like, let's say that your skin is. Let's say we're brothers in the same family. Let's say you're a little bit darker complected than I am. Then you will be the negro, so the black one. But it's not like a derogatory term. It's just kind of like, oh well, your skin is like it's very typical. Like you're very negro. So it's like you are very black.
You're more black skin.
Yeah, so you're darker, but because of our past, we have to say things like you're darker complected than I am. But it's in Mexico, it's really fascinating because I've known a handful of blonde Mexicans that are very Mexican from Mexico City, and I've known Mexicans that are, very dark skinned, and I've known Mexicans that are indigenous. Yucatecans that speak Maya that aren't as dark skinned as other Mexicans. And it's just, Latin America is a really amazing place for ethnic diversity. And now I'm totally, you wandered me off. Damn it. What was I talking about? Rashida Jones made a doc. Wow.
Holy cow, that woman is gorgeous.
Yeah.
She is something else.
Rashida Jones has produced a documentary called Hot Girls Wanted. And it's about amateur girls getting into the porn industry. It's on Netflix and it's fantastic. It's been at Sundance and everything. She didn't direct it, but she produced it. And she does a really good interview on Vice.com about the porn industry and about sex and about love and these kinds of fun things that we've been talking about. And this would be great. I wish there was more depth on what they're doing because I don't think we talk about it enough in our society. When I was in Spain, I worked.
When you say what they're doing, you're referring to
whatever the hell they're doing in the Netherlands. Whatever the hell they're doing in the Netherlands.
I'm sure it's open source. You could find out.
Yeah, I'm sure I could find out and dig a little bit. I'm sure it's in English in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
In Spain, they had, baby dolls, and we had a pre-K kindergarten classroom of 3 years old to 4 years old to 5 years old, and they had baby dolls, and they had genitalia on them, and for me it was like, oh my god, because I remember, Barbie dolls without private parts, and baby dolls without private parts, and Ken dolls without nipples and things like that, and that's kind of I think that's very United States for us.
Sure.
I think we are very conservative in these. So I was really kind of surprised with 66% when you threw out when that statistic was thrown out in there, because people are people have long been afraid to talk about sex in this country, and now in some ways I think it's almost worse than the 50s because now the dialogue that we have on sex is like Nicki Minaj, on the cover of Cosmo wearing some insane new outfit, or what's her Achy Breaky Heart's daughter, swinging from a wrecking ball butt naked, from the profile. There's no good, to me, there's very, very little good practical dialogue on sex and love that takes place in our country. And it's so often in the context of pornography and, scantily clad, airbrushed, cosmopolitan cover models and, girls like that. And that's why, but if you get a chance, watch this Rashida Jones documentary. And for you or for whoever else is listening, because it's a really great look at, and these inside the porn industry documentaries are coming out kind of from, and they're not Gonzo style, but they're very objective and they're very looking at the real side of the models and of the stars that are in adult films. And it's so fascinating to me how often the sex that's portrayed in porno films is not sex for all intents and purposes. And it's not sex in the aspect of, in the idea of physical, the physical act of love, but it's also like horribly uncomfortable things that you would never do in real life, that no human being would ever do. It's things that look good on camera, and it's things that look good under certain lights, and it's things that look good, to watch from a certain angle of a camera.
It's an attempt at a fantasy.
Yeah. And it's, in some ways, it's really repetitious. But so the point of one of the big narratives in the documentary is how powerless these girls are. And they're all like 18 to 21. And it's about how the porn industry is a meat grinder, and how the new girls last 1 to 3 months. So they follow this one girl who makes $10,000 in 3 months being a new girl in porn. And she's like 19. It's a lot of money if you're like 18 or 19. And moves from a little town in Texas to Miami to do this. Mm-hmm. And she says at one point, she's like, I made $10,000 and I came home with $1,000. She quits after 3 months. And if you want to participate in it as an actress, cool, do what you want. If you want to watch it, cool, do what you want. But we all, as a people, need to be aware of the unintended consequences of this. I mean, everybody loves boobies, but I think there's something really wrong with worshiping such augmented female forms. Mm-hmm. Such abstracted ones and abstracted camera sex angles. Like there's a part when a girl is in the middle of a shoot and like runs out to the bathroom like screaming and saying like there is nothing that is sexy about that position. There is nothing that is attractive about that. There's nothing that's comfortable and pleasing about that at all. So it's like if that's what we're consuming, and the other thing is like that this is a sleeper phenomenon. Like to me, I don't know. To me, it's a problem because it erodes at things like this. So in the Netherlands, they start talking about intimacy probably at 5 years old. Holding hands and being friends. And who do you like? Okay, you like this teacher for this reason. You like this uncle for this reason. You like this friend for this reason. These parents for this reason. Like we talk about who's special in your lives, and we have special days set apart. Father's Day and Mother's Day set apart for special people. But I don't think we talk enough about intimacy and love in these ways in this country, and what is okay and how to be selective. And I don't know, I would really advocate for that. So they throw out a statistic in this interview with Rashida Jones and in this film that says that the average age that somebody starts watching porn is like 13 years old or something like that. Like I have a problem with that. Like cool if you're all into no regulations and things like that, but I have a problem with that. I think that they're not, and a lot of these websites are asking like, are you 18? Click this box. Are you 21? Click this box. It's like, I've grown up with this. I've grown up, and a lot of guys, and it's a hard thing to talk about because in some ways it is embarrassing. So, I've grown up when, kids were downloading naked pictures of whoever and things like that. So it makes me really afraid. It makes me afraid for my children to see how they'll deal with intimacy, to see how they'll deal with sex as they grow up and as they mature in this society. So I don't know.
It wouldn't make me as afraid for my own children if it was if we had programs like this. If it was done correctly, because the reason that market is there is because of sexual suppression in our country, right, to the point which I would make the argument something to do with religion, just guessing. But yeah, it's a bunch of different things.
But I think that the powers that be that would make an impact on this are the same types of people that don't want the rebel flags to come down and things like that. And don't want gay people to get married because they're worried that we're going to run out and try and marry our dogs and things like that. Yeah. And try, commit all sorts of wonderful acts of bestiality and things like that. Yeah. The Song of Songs is a book in the Bible that is nothing but erotic poetry. There's all kinds of, I don't know. sexuality is something that I have heard very little in the context of church as a Christian, and as a college student, went to college, Christian college student ministries, wanting to hear the sex talk, wanting to hear about, and had that talk with my dad when I was 11 in a very like scientific kind of voice, and like what happens about sex and about periods and things like that. But really was kind of brought to my knees on my first couple of really bad breakups. And I don't know. So those are things that I would have liked to have been taught for me. And I mean, my parents, I think, have done a great job with me, but I don't know. It's become very personal all of a sudden. I don't know. I think it's something that we're really missing as a culture. And as I'm getting older, there's definitely a desire of like looking for people to date and things like that, in terms of being selective with who you pick and not just going out with somebody or fooling around with somebody just because you're horny or just because you want to. There's definitely that. And not like, oh, well, I'm way more attractive than she is, or like she's way more attractive than I am. All that aside, like somebody that you're compatible with and somebody that would be good for you and help you grow. I mean, that's what it should be about, right?
Sure. It just takes you time to assimilate yourself and to know the kind of things that are appropriate in a relationship. That's why teaching kids at a younger age that they can be prepared to make those decisions is so crucial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people that are conservative Christians, that are really conservative Christians, that do have sex at ages like that, let's say, 18, 19, I'm sure it's unprotected the first couple of times because they're so scared and it just happens. And it's like they get in really good relationships with boyfriends and girlfriends, or they get in like really powerful relationships where they've been with somebody for a few weeks and they're just crazy about them, and then all of a sudden they have sex, and they're not ready for it. And they don't know about buying condoms, and they don't know about Plan B, and they don't know about any of this stuff because it's always been kind of taboo. I mean,
don't have sex instead of here's how to have safe sex.
Exactly. Abstinence instead of or slouching towards abstinence or reaching for abstinence instead of like, oh, well, yeah, I'll have sex one day and this is what I'll do.
Mm-hmm. That's what I disagree with when it comes to this, like, oh, we got to worry about the kids, so we need to push more of this religious ideology to not do it, or that it's not supposed to be spoken of. This is a suppressed thing, or we're not going to teach you from an educational standpoint what it is because it's embarrassing and it shouldn't even be happening. But then you're not gonna stop that,
Right. We're human beings,
Right. You're trying to impose ideologies and dogmas over instinct, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It has to be done scientifically, as you say.
Yeah.
So
people are going to have sex. I mean, there's no
stopping it. It's fantastic. Nobody wants to not. I mean, there are people for various reasons, but on the whole, if you just came out instinctual, like if you were just born on an island, I'd like to use this metaphor for like religions and politics and stuff. You were just born on an island.
But you don't have to take that. There's fantastic studies done on this subject about people living in the Amazon. I can't.
Sure.
There's one that I read when I was a senior, and I can't bring it up right now. But I mean, and they, there's not real marriages, and they just kind of have sex all the time, and they don't really wear clothes. So it's a little different. And they have things like ritual masculinity, where all the men will go into a tent and like do man rituals and become men and all that stuff, but like daily. But
sticks up their ass and
twist
like that, their penis around into.
I don't know about all that.
No, I've seen India like videos of.
Oh, that's India. This is Amazon.
This is weird. Yeah, no, but I'm saying it goes back to these rituals and these spiritual. Sometimes it's like a spiritual thing. It's like getting through pain and manhood, like proving things and what have you.
Yeah. And that transcends a lot of different societies. No, but this, I mean, the kids are growing up around everybody having sex all the time. So there's 8-year-olds saying, I'll have sex one day. And in some ways it is like Brave New World, where, what is it? I think they say that 11-year-olds are engaging in whatever they call it, erotic play. And you look like you're 25 until you're 55 or 60, and then you just die.
Yeah.
But it's all about sex.
Those pills, man.
Yeah. Soma, man. But Soma's not what kept him young. Just the engineering kept him young.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have way more of a conversation about this. There needs to be way more dialogue, and I don't think there is like any. And I think a big part of it is everybody's terrified to talk about it. And I think it's just been so taboo. I mean, we just legalized gay marriage like today. And it's still, there's still people, shouting from the rooftop, they're going to marry their dogs. And
We're like another version of an Amazon tribe that's primitive, living in its own.
I guess so, yeah. So where they haven't seen Coke bottles, we haven't seen real sex. So, just real sex doesn't have to be with whips and chains and handcuffs and all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, just, throw in some Bill Withers and,
yeah.
whatever. Get to it.
And that's our message, ladies and gentlemen.
Alrighty.
We thank you for joining us, Will. Thank you for the 50th.
Thanks for having me, Stefan. I really enjoyed this. This is a blast.
You want to do it again before you leave? Before you go out of state?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool,
I'd love
cool.
to.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. Hit it up on a weekend. So that's it, folks. That's the 50th episode. If you want to hear more, go to the Coastal Noise podcast page, coastalnoise.com. Following all the cool places and all things related. You know what it is. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy. Thank you, Stefan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. Good night, everybody.